Hey everyone, it's your Peacekeeper coming at you with the next video in our How to Play series on the Japanese destroyer line. This is the Tier 7 Shiratsuyu class destroyer on the alternative destroyer line. The Shiratsuyu class destroyers were a series of 10 destroyers completed in 1931 through 1937. The name means white dew. The Shiratsuyu class was a product-improved Hatsuharu class and fixed several of the seakeeping issues related to Hatsuharu's hull design. The only major exterior differences are a more compact bridge and the shape and size of the funnels. Originally intended to be the final 6 vessels of the Hatsuharu class, the class was broken off into its own class due to substantial changes internally to the ship. The 4 additional ships were ordered later in 1934 to give you 10 total Shiratsuyu class destroyers. The class was the first class of Japanese warships to be completed with the quadruple armored torpedo mounts, and, of a more interesting note, the first Japanese destroyer to be equipped with a telephone for communicating with the torpedo station from the rest of the ship. You would think that would be common sense, but back in the day that was apparently very revolutionary. All 10 of the Shiratsuyu class destroyers were sunk during World War II by combat actions, mostly by submarines. Only Yudachi, Murasame, and Kawakaze were lost due to surface action. Harusame was the only to fall victim to aircraft. There are 2 very notable Shiratsuyu class destroyers worth mentioning. First is Shigure. Shigure, along with the Kagero class destroyer Yukikaze, were considered to be the 2 luckiest ships in the Imperial Japanese Navy, as they had survived a large number of major naval battles. Shigure was present at the Battle of Midway, the first naval battle at Guadalcanal, the Battle of Leyte Gulf, and the Battle of Suragawa Strait. Her luck would unfortunately run out when the U.S. submarine USS Blackfin torpedoed and sank her in the Gulf of Siam. The second destroyer of some infamy is Yudachi. Yudachi participated in the Battle of Java Sea, the Battle of Midway, the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands, and the first naval battle at Guadalcanal. Yudachi's actual achievements in combat are considered to be somewhat spotty, though, but she is frequently credited with torpedoing the USS Portland in the naval battle at Guadalcanal, as well as assisting in the sinking of the USS Gregory and USS Little, 2 destroyers, a month earlier. During the battle, naval battle at Guadalcanal, shell fire from the USS Sterett disabled one of her boilers because Yudachi shined her signal light at the USS Sterett, believing it to be another Japanese destroyer. Surprise, surprise, it wasn't. It was a US destroyer. And the shots disabled the boilers, and as a result of this, her captain, Yudachi's captain, ordered the crew to sew together whatever linen they could find to create a sail so that the ship could continue to move on. And having run this sail up, the U.S. ships in the area saw it and believed it to be her raising the white flag of surrender and largely ignored her. Of course, you can imagine their vast anger when Yudachi began firing upon the U.S. ships, and amongst those people at which she continued to fire on was the USS Portland, whom she is credited with torpedoing. After Yudachi finally was no longer able to fight, her crew was evacuated to the Samudare, and Samudare attempted to scuttle Yudachi with 3 torpedoes but failed. The captain of the USS Portland, upon discovering the evacuated Yudachi and assuming it not to be evacuated, ordered his crew to, quote, "sink that son of a bitch," to which they did. Due to the unsure history and the unsure contributions during the naval battle at Guadalcanal, Yudachi in the Japanese anime Kantai collection, or Kankole, was given the verbal tick poi, which, as a rough translation, means ish, as in like childish. It's a level of uncertainty. Her use of poi is said to indicate the uncertain contribution during the naval battle at Guadalcanal, in which the Japanese have credited her with sinking 5 ships and damaging 2 others. Of course, this conflicts with the U.S. accounts of what happened, and they attribute the damages to several of those ships, which he's credited of sinking, to other ships involved in the naval battle. And so as a result, she is frequently saying poi as an homage to that uncertain history. Before we dive into the in-game tips, I do want to go over the stats in the modules of this ship, so let's go down those stats. In terms of hit points, she has 12,800 hit points, next to no armor. That's pretty much the standard for destroyers. Her main battery consists of 527mm 50 caliber third-year type guns. They are mounted in one dual turret up front, one dual turret way in the back, and a single turret kind of in the middle, more towards the back. They have a main battery firing range of 13.2 kilometers with advanced firing training, a 6.8 second reload time, and a 7% fire chance without flags. Really not a bad set of guns, although I do feel that Akatsuki is a much better ship for gunnery, but we will talk more about that in a moment. She does have those two quadruple torpedo tube mounts in the middle, and as a result of this, Wargaming decided to give her probably the most brokenly overpowered consumable for a destroyer. That's Torpedo Reload Booster. But this Torpedo Reload Booster is not like the mainline Torpedo Reload Booster, which reduces the reload down to 30 seconds from whatever it is. This reduces it down to 5 seconds. So in theory, in a 10-second time span, Shiratsuyu can unleash 16 torpedoes. That's one more torpedo than Shimakaze, which is a tier 10 destroyer. And needless to say, you can imagine that she is an excellent torpedo boat. Shiratsuyu is an excellent torpedo boat, and we will see that in the battle video. Those torpedoes do have a 10-kilometer range, 62 knot top speed, 1.6-kilometer detection range, and 17,223 damage. They do pack quite a punch, and being as you can unleash 16 of them at a time, that is really quite potent. Shiratsuyu does have anti-aircraft, although they are entirely 25mm guns. They do have a 3.7 kilometer range, and it does exist. I have shot down aircraft with Shiratsuyu's AA. However, it's nothing really to write home about, and it's certainly not something I would spec into. Just for your information, the anti-aircraft battery consists of 4 single 25mm guns, 8 dual 25mm guns, and 2 triple 25mm guns. Her maneuverability, maximum speed is 34 knots, turning circle radius is 590 meters, and the rudder shift time is 3.1 seconds without the rudder shift upgrade. Her detection range by sea is 5.8 kilometers. That's going to be with Concealment Expert. The battle video we will see at the end of this does not have Concealment Expert. The detection range by air is 3.1. In terms of those upgrades, main armaments mod 1 is definitely the standard here. In the second one, aiming systems mod 1 is what I would recommend you go with. As we talked about in the Akatsuki video, main battery mod 2 has a tendency to reduce your overall DPS, even if it makes you slightly more comfortable in using the guns. The downside to this is, of course, that reduction in DPS of your main guns exacerbates the already poor DPS you have with your main guns. I definitely don't recommend sacrificing rate of fire to get turret traverse. Just shoot at longer ranges where turret traverse isn't as big of an issue. You will never get the turret traverse down to be quick enough to actually engage a U.S. destroyer at close ranges. And even if you could, your DPS would be atrocious. So definitely not worth getting main battery mod 2 in my opinion. AA guns mod 2, all of your AA guns are 25mm guns. There's not a lot of DPS there, which, by the way, just as an interesting side note, Shiratsuyu, like Hatsuharu and Fubuki, had the ability to use their main guns as dual-purpose mounts. They did elevate to 75 degrees, and they were powered well enough to actually track aircraft. And at the late war, Shiratsuyu, the surviving Shiratsuyus at the late war, did receive air radar. So They should be able to do some anti-aircraft damage with the main battery, but apparently not in this game. In the third module slot, Propulsion Systems Mod 1 is the one I would choose. As I've said in other videos, Steering Gears Mod 1 is not a bad choice either if you are constantly having your rudder taken out and never have your engine taken out. Definitely don't recommend Damage Control Systems Mod 1. In this last slot, I recommend Propulsion Systems Mod 2. The Steering Gears Mod 2 that I would normally take on some destroyers simply isn't necessary. 3.1 seconds is quite quick for a rudder shift time. It's not something that Shiratsuyu is weak in, so I definitely don't recommend wasting it there. That pretty much leaves Propulsion Systems Mod 2 because Damage Control Systems Mod 2 is useless for a destroyer, or at least nearly useless for a destroyer. I would much rather have Propulsion Systems Mod 2 for when I'm putting back and forth in smoke and gunning people down. In terms of overall gameplay style, Shiratsuyu does operate much better as a torpedo boat than Akatsuki does, and a large portion of that is because of that torpedo reload booster, allowing you to have what is essentially a Shimakaze at Tier 7. You get 16 torpedoes, but unlike Shimakaze, they come in 4 sets of 4 instead of 3 sets of 5. And that gives you just a little bit extra flexibility in aiming those torpedoes so that it's hard for the enemy to dodge them. You can either stack them up so you get a really thick and heavy wall. You can either set out widespread to cover a wide area. You can set them out so that it's just one continuous large wall. I mean, you can do any number of different things with the torpedoes with 4 sets of 4 versus the 3 sets of 5 on Shimakaze. And that makes Shiratsuyu a really good torpedo boat with usable and not awful guns. They just require you to play it in a slightly different playstyle than most people are used to. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive on into that battle video. So this battle is a Tier 8 fight, and it does not have any carriers. However, the enemy team does have 4 Japanese destroyers. They got screwed in the destroyer compartment. Although, they kind of brought it upon themselves because all 3 of those Akatsukis are divisioned together. That would be a very potent team if they were able to get that all to work out entirely. This video is pre-6.3. However, there is next to no actual stealth firing of the main guns that goes on in this video, so I don't have to explain that. Also, just as a random aside and kind of a facepalm moment, I did not run premium consumables during this battle. So the battle map is Trap, and this map is definitely not one of my favorites. There's not really a whole lot of places to really play with destroyers, especially Japanese destroyers, to kind of leap out and ambush stuff, although B does certainly offer enough interesting things to do that with. So we're going to go to B, and we are going to go ahead and prepare our guns by moving them to guns right. What I will end up doing is going north in B. That way, if we were to encounter enemy ships, I can go and actually loop back out of B, out that northwestern part of the cap circle. And that is my recommendation for the ship. If you are going to get into a gunfight, definitely be prepared for that. Right now my guns are pointed gun forward instead of towards the aft of the ship. That way, if I encounter any destroyers as I'm going into the cap, I can address them as I am running away. Also, you know, we do have the torpedo reload booster so that if we were to need to have torpedoes in the 30 seconds that it's going to take for them to reload, we can also dump those quickly. But because of how quickly those torpedoes come up, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. In terms of overall gameplay style, as I said, you know, it's a really strong torpedo boat. You've got the ability to dump 16 torpedoes, and what makes that even better than Shimakaze in a lot of ways is the fact that those 16 torpedoes are in 4 separate groups. So Shimakaze launches 15 in 3 groups of 5. Shiratsuyu will launch 16 in 4 groups of 4. That gives you a lot of flexibility in shutting down entire areas. And, okay, so there was some stealth firing there. Oh my, we did some stealth firing. For what it's worth, would have I done that at the beginning of this if
if that was not a viable tactic? The answer is still surprisingly yes. Given the fact that none of their destroyers are anywhere near me, you can see that 2 of them are for sure up north, with the possibility of the 3rd being up there, and the other one I'm assuming is down in A because nobody has spotted it. I'm just going to safely assume that those destroyers are not anywhere near me. And so, yes, I would continue to engage. Most of these ships would not be able to hit me at this range because of the ability of the ship to maneuver, the ability of me to jam back the throttle and cause them to miss. So, yes, I would still have engaged them at that time. That's just kind of the way that I play. I'm very aggressive in my capturing of stuff. Now, wasn't paying too much attention here, and unfortunately got ourselves a bit close to a Bayern, and yeah, so my assumption there was that he was going to go ahead and turn in. He ends up turning out. Oh, we got a Dev Strike on a Cleveland. Yep, we nailed him. So we are sitting in smoke, and we have lost half our hit points. Really rather frustrating. That reload booster, you can see how that was a bit of an advantage, although generally speaking, I like to bring that up and use it so that I can dump 16 torpedoes out in one area. And there is another torpedo hit. So we're up to 4 torpedo hits and a fire. 3 on that Cleveland for the Dev Strike, and the 4th on this Bayern. The fire on the Bayern, of course, he's going to have repaired that, and so long as he remains spotted, I've got plenty of time. No destroyers anywhere near me. Nothing that can launch torpedoes anywhere near me. We're going to go ahead and we're going to sit in the smoke. You can see we're not doing a whole lot of damage with the HE shells, but you can see where I am aiming it. Nice lucky shot into the smoke there. I am aiming at the superstructure, the deck area. My hope is that we can get him to start on fire like that. Now he will continue to burn until his repair party comes back up. Ooh, he almost got another one too. Our smoke is getting ready to dissipate, so we do need to plan to get out of here. We've got 16 seconds left on the torpedoes, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump on out. We've stopped firing so that we're not detected when we pop out of here. And okay, so we can see the Bayern. He's still burning. And we've got the torpedo. Whoop, detected. Uh-oh, what's detecting? Ah, Mr. Bismarck. So the Bismarck, I think that was his scout plane that was doing that. Ouch! That was a heck of a hit. I think that was the Arizona that did that. And we are down to next to no hit points. They have lost 2 Akatskis, one of which was to a Mogami. I don't know about the other one. We're going to come around to the other side of this island and see if we can't get this Bismarck and see what other ships decide to come up here. At this point, our whole team has gone up to C. I've managed to basically hold B by myself. I've done 64,000 damage, which is pretty good, actually, in a destroyer. When you think about the server averages for the average damage on the server is like 30,000-ish, usually for Tier 7, like 27 to 32. And so, doing quite well there. Basically double that. We do have this Bismarck coming through. You can see here I'm kind of fishing. I'm trying my best to stay undetected here. And in order to do that, it's going to require me to... Well, I was hoping for better spotting. There. Okay, so we can see this Bismarck again. We're going to launch torpedoes. Now, the Bismarck has hydroacoustic. And what that's going to mean is that he is going to be able to spot those torpedoes from far enough away where that could be a problem. Also, there's a spotting plane there, so if he somehow manages to miss those, those are on him. So far, so good. He is sailing in a straight line. We also have that Prinz Eugen there, and that is a Admiral Hipper class cruiser, heavy cruiser for the German line, and maybe we'll catch him. And what was this other thing that I spotted? Is that a destroyer? Yes, there's the Kagero. Look at that. Just get... Oh, no Kagero. 1 on the Bismarck. And we're detected. This must have been... Yeah, this is before I had the concealment expert on the captain. And... Duck and a weave. Oh, and a torpedo hit on Prinz Eugen. So we are now up to 6 torpedo hits, 87,500 damage, and 931 hit points. Okay, so this Prince Eugen he's coming up there. They are pushing hard up the middle, and this is a perfect place to go ahead and use our torpedo reload booster, but it's not up. And so that Kagero popped up real quick. I went ahead and put some rounds into him while I was in smoke. I'm going to go ahead and use my guns to shoot at this Bayern. The Kagero is around the corner. I have no idea where his torpedoes are, but I can pretty much assume that his torpedoes can't reach me because of him being on the other side of the island. We are checking our torpedo lead indicator to see if the ships are still coming through, and it looks like they are. So Bismarck is slowing down some there. We're going to go ahead and launch those torpedoes. See, maybe we can start him on fire before we get out of here. Prince Eugen's coming around the corner. Maybe we can get him with those torpedoes. That would be kind of interesting and funny. Get a nice little double whammy present here with our torpedoes. That Arizona is still over there. Prince Eugen's coming around the corner. And there goes the Bayern. There. So the Prince Eugen dodges the torpedoes, but in doing so has opened himself up to nice broadside Citadel love. He's coming back out and around this corner, so we're going to go ahead and launch torpedoes again. I'm launching them short because my anticipation is he's going to turn out. Oh, 2 more hits on that Bismarck. Prince Eugen, he's coming around, and... oh, the torpedoes killed him. Well, we would have gotten him had the torpedoes not gotten him. So I can think in my head how awesome that would have been had those torpedoes hit. 116,535 damage, 8 torpedo hits, 7 floods, only 2 fires, which is rather interesting. But hey, we've got a cap, we got a dev strike. What's not to like about this so far? Because we are so low hit points, and because 3 out of the 4 ships are in B, the 4th is an unknown, most likely in B, I am going to duck around, and especially since that Kagero is on the other side of the island invisible, I'm going to duck around and see if I can't put some torpedoes into some of these ships that are up here. They are up to 3, or down to 3 ships. We're about to lose our torpedoes. So the Arizona takes a big hit from something. I didn't get to see what, but almost all of his hit points are gone. Did try and shoot over the island there, and nothing. And because we are going to be detected if we come around this corner, we definitely want to go away. He is coming towards us. We definitely don't want him to come towards us if we can avoid it. Was fully anticipating a full-on fight here. However, he did not pursue, really. In fact, he is now turning back into mid. Well, since he is threatening me with what can only be best described as a good time, we will go run down to A and be sneaky and see if we can't cap A before the end of this game and give us 2 solo caps, because there won't be anyone else with me. And you can still fight 4 caps. In fact, if you're a Japanese destroyer that makes it to the end game, you know, it's really a really strong position to be in, because you have such good concealment, and at tier 7 it's like this really awkward tier, but even at tier 7, you know, 6.5 without, that's still pretty good for concealment, without concealment expert. That's still pretty good without concealment for not having concealment expert. 5.8 with, that's still pretty strong. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We're going to dive into the cap here, and this is potentially a really bad idea. I don't recommend doing this, but sometimes you know, interesting things happen when you make big power plays. Kagero's concealment technically is better. I have no idea where he's at. My assumption is that he is off with his battleship over there. That's certainly where I would want to be if I was going to be involved in anything. And as we creep in here, he is in the cap. He is blocking the cap. Now he's no longer blocking the cap. So that tells me he just went out the southeast side of the cap. Going to go ahead and slow down here, and we will cap this, and then we will go cap A. And down goes their Bismarck to our North Carolina. Good for our North Carolina. You burned him to death. Oh, I'm assuming that was with the... Oh, hello, Cancole, popping up on my screen there. I'm assuming that was due to secondaries. And NCB... Yeah, okay. So the team is asking me to go to A, and that was the original plan. We were stopping at B to see if we couldn't cap B in the process of all this. So we are now going to go down to A and see if we can't spot. And they are saying to go ahead and just kill the DD. Well, the problem is I only have 931 hit points. There's a good chance that I will be able to spot him at relatively the same time that he spots me. Depending on how he has his captain spec. I wasn't paying attention when I first detected him. I probably should have been, but we'll go ahead and we'll cap A. We have that as an option. I'm assuming he went either south or east, so that means he should be popping up here any moment. And we have a cruiser there that hopefully, even though he has very few hit points, will be able to take on this lone Kagero. I found that Japanese destroyer captains don't like to use their guns, and you can see we've got 58 shell hits, 2 fires, doesn't mean much at this point, but the reality of the situation is that every time you use your guns, even now with the stealth fire nerf, every time you use your guns is more damage potential, because all it takes is 1 fire for a battleship captain that isn't paying attention to how many fires he has to burn his damage control party, for your torpedoes to come in and put him out of commission and cause all sorts of flood damage. Or the other way around, you get your torpedo flood damage and the fire then burns. And that is very useful. I can't stress that enough. Plus, on destroyer versus destroyer engagements, those guns do lop off a couple thousand every single time you get like 2 or 3 shell hits. That's quite a lot of hit points when you only have, 13,000 hit points. It only takes a couple of those salvos to really get your attention. The guns don't traverse very fast, so if you're going to play with the guns, I definitely recommend playing them at longer ranges. And remembering to definitely abuse the WASD, Q, and E keys in order to be constantly maneuvering. If you guys haven't noticed yet in these videos, one of the biggest things that I do is every single time my destroyer gets detected, whether that's because I was firing or because another destroyer detected me, I am maneuvering. I am changing directions. I'm responding to the threat for one. So if the destroyer's in front of me, I'm trying to turn and get away because I can't. Closing distances in a Japanese destroyer is usually inadvisable unless it's another Japanese destroyer, sans a Kazuki, which I definitely don't recommend ever closing the distance on. But I'm trying to get away from them. 2, it allows me to bring torpedoes to bear, so if I need to panic torp, I can do that. 2, if I decide to smoke up, I can smoke up and, have my guns already pointed in the direction of the threat. And lastly, if I do engage with my guns, constantly using and maneuvering allows me to avoid incoming shell fire the best and allows you to live until the end of the game, much like this. Now, the Kagero has managed to take out our North Carolina, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, man, we've got all 3 cap points. What are the odds that this Kagero is going to kill this other battleship, and it's going to be this nearly dead Mogami and nearly dead Shiratsuyu versus like a half-health Kagero? Like, no... This could go bad. This could go well. I mean, I would take my chances against that Mogami if I was in a half health Shiratsuyu or Kagero. I would definitely take my chances. 1,000 damage to a cruiser with HE, even in a Japanese destroyer, he's going to go down in 2, 3, maybe 4 salvos. And yeah, so this is the end of this battle is going to kind of drag on a little bit here because we're going to go back up to B. The Kagero is going to get spotted, and I'm going to do some stealth firing at him at range. And yes, I would do this even if, and even with, the removal of stealth fire. And the reasons for it are quite simple. He is definitely going to be preoccupied with this battleship. There's absolutely no reason for me not to engage him, even though the shell arcs, and I've actually compared this, the shell arcs on the Japanese destroyers are only marginally better than the US destroyer. Shell flight time at maximum range is roughly the same, although the Mahan has a much shorter range than Shiratsuyu does. But, you know, at these ranges, you can see it's pretty much US destroyer. Look at how high those things go. It's not quite full-on US destroyer, but it's pretty dang close. So yes, I would do this even with the removal of stealth fire. I'm engaging him. My intent here is to try and either draw his attention away from the New Mexico or pull him out of the cap so that we can win, or continue to keep him visible long enough for that Mogami that's not following me or the New Mexico to sink him. And that was the goal, and the game is going to end, and we are going to end with 116,535 damage, 8 torpedo hits, 2 solo caps, a regular cap, I guess, cap with assist, 2 fires, defend, I think, dev strike, poor Cleveland didn't even see it coming, 2,119 base XP, 92,000 damage done in torpedoes on those 8 torpedo hits. There's the credit screen. Anyway, Shiratsuyu is a fun ship to play. It's just a little bit different than Akatsuki. Of the two, I prefer Akatsuki because I prefer how more well-rounded Akatsuki is. But Shiratsuyu is by no means a bad ship to play. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.